So for this next part, I want to give our audience some context. So Ajay, when Anirudh told me that you're also coming on the podcast, I went to your LinkedIn profile. From there, I went to your GitHub profile. You're still active on GitHub. I saw that you forked the Google Gemini Pro repository and also Microsoft's AI Guide repository. So I wanted to ask you about that, but let's just begin with where you think AI is right now, and how do you see it progressing generally, but also for you personally as well as Custiv.
Sure, yeah. I think, I've been in the data and AI space for a decade now. And, connecting to my GitHub, I see myself as an engineer first more than anything else. And as an engineer, I should have my hands and feet right. And in machine learning, now probably it has been glorified as AI. I think if you are not hands-on, then actually you are just talking, right? So that's not fun. When a revolution is happening, you are just standing and clapping from the sideways. So it's not fun at all, right? In revolution, you need to participate, right?
Yeah.
Either you need to squash the revolution or you should be the revolutionary. Exactly, right? Yeah. So I see myself as as one of the foot soldiers, so to say. I think. I started my career, of course, as in those days, a deep tech developer working on routing protocols and writing some kernel level C code for routing, IP routing, packet routing. And then when AI came in, I kind of got back to and did my master's in AI, where I left in IIT a couple of decades back, so to say, AI. So I think where AI today is, if you were to look at last decade of the evolution to now, right? If you look at 2015, 16, and I'm talking about beyond big tech, people who had limited access to compute, data, etc. Right? I'm not talking about the boys and girls who are coming from very well-fed setups, right? Yeah. The larger masses. I think they always had the challenge, and I think the democratization started to happen around 2015, 16 when Amazon started to actually build massive computes and they're comparatively cheaply available. And then the second thing which happened was actually, collab started to come in. And I think it allowed for some bit of democratization, right? People who are working, you could build toy models and toy models because, so I think with that, as that revolution was happening, 2015 to 2021, I think now we are at a stage where foundation models have been reached. Now, that's where it starts to change the game from still being a pure engineer's premise. And ML being an engineer's premise where you have to be fairly good at math, statistics, coding, DevOps, etc. to build any kind of system. Now it started to build with these public APIs and all where any person who has a basic passion to understand a previously built intelligence, let's say in the form of ChatGPT, and is creative enough to conjure up use cases, can build, can bring real life use cases and not traffic. So I think if you were to see that probably November 2022 when GPT-3 was launched was kind of an epoch moment in that sense. Now, of course, I remember, I used to be in Valley at that point in time, and it was becoming completely crazy. LangChain came up, and I still remember we went to one launch party of LangChain, and there was supposed to be 100 people who what LangChain was, and then 500 people gate crashed, and you could understand there is some revolution going on, right? People started leaving their jobs in all of these big companies who were smart enough, of course. So I think where we are is that now it's a situation of extreme democratization. First wave of democratization happened between 2015 to 2021. And I think now in 2022, after GPT-3 got released and the ChatGPT interface was launched, it kind of brought it to the imagination and fancy of the common man. And that essentially means it gives the iOS moment of 2007 to the normal developers, you don't need to be a PhD in math or statistics to build an AI. So I think that is one part that's where AI is. But needless to say, I'm not kind of bringing this message here that you can build some serious AI without not understanding math and stats and putting in the hard work, right? You'll still be a consumer. You'll still be like, with all due respect, you will still be a JavaScript developer. Right? You can write some front-end pages. You'll never be a full software engineer who can build apps that will capture business and change the world, right? So I think that is the one. I think the second thing which also happens is with that one, especially with my previous company, Meta launching the Llama, and then likewise countries jumping in like UAE coming up with Falcon model, then Mistral.ai for former Meta engineers. The capital came in so huge droves. Of course, there are so many con men who have also got the attention and the money, but the fact is that AI is progressing in a net positive direction in terms of advancement and expansion. I mean, just like it seems like a decade, even though it's like just 1 year and a half, that multimodality on very low-end devices is being talked about, which is just not fathomable just 2-3 years back, right? So I think there is a lot of development there, and I think the other thing also is that, like I was talking earlier, that some serious AI was the domain of only the big techs. I think, in some sense, Llama kind of initiated or gave some support to the open source movement. I think this is another big trend which is happening now. But I think that will allow, just like the open source software, thinking back like in 2000s, any software programmer once it's solved never wanted to be labeled as a Windows-based programmer, right? Unless you're a Unix-based programmer. But that was like, and I think the same thing is happening now. I would say probably a couple of years down the line, a majority corpus of AI will come as open source AI. Right? And that is a kind of major trend, foundation models. So the cloud-based computation, a huge amount of public APIs and public source software, then coming up with foundation models, then the November 2022 GPT-3 becoming like human-like, and then now the full open source movement triggered through Llama and the likes. I think these are kind of trends which are happening right now. Of course, is large language model the answer to AGI? I think that is, of course, a hallucination in some super believers. I think I'm not sure what does even AGI mean. At least from my simple mind's point of view. But what I think, kind of now pivoting or kind of starting to index in terms of what does it mean for manufacturing and AI. I think what it means is that, the cost points are starting to come down.
Yeah.
With a huge amount of interest, a lot of people want to study AI. I was actually talking to one of, software developers in our team who comes from Manipal Institute of Technology. And in fact, they launched the first data science and AI graduate degree program. Apparently, we were the first in the country in a way. And in fact, we are proud to have one of the graduating students as our intern. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a big corpus of people who want to take full time and who have been trained in the trenches of AI and become, right? Like just 4 or 5 years back, it was like some software engineers who were trying to kind of self-teach themselves, or the other extreme was like PhDs who had spent 7-8 years in the college and then they were coming in. So I think that whole thing of, think of a generation like 10-15 years back when full stack developers started to kind of becoming in higher quantity. So compute started to become available, algorithms have started to become available. And I think now we have this corpus of fairly trained data science and AI engineers, and that will help companies like ours who otherwise will not have the capacity to bring in PhDs and so on to do some fundamental research and also I think AI becomes much more accessible because the factors of production of AI, which is the compute and data over the cloud, to summarize, to foundation models and open source models being available, especially on the lower end devices, and then well-trained, motivated engineers taking AI as a full-time job, not like somebody who just fancies AI and becomes an AI engineer, but real people, right? So I think all these factors of production are starting to come, and I think this will help many of companies who want to use applied AI. Like we are not like research AI company.
Yeah.
We are going to be an applied AI, right? We're going to figure out, for example, if there is the painting which has been done on a girder, is it of the right depth and fair consistency? Today, we deploy people, right? Tomorrow, we could be just, and I think all of those things become much more high grade AI solutions being built cost effectively and being rendered or inferred cost effectively starts to become a reality. So AI is jumping in, my sense is AI is jumping in for the non-big techs from POCs to full-time real-life deployments at fairly cost-effective. So I see that the Web 2.0 movement or movement that happened in 2007 for into 2010, 11, 12, all the apps ecosystem came in. I would see applied AI apps would come in, and I think from our point of view, we clearly have a roadmap where we are preparing the manufacturing data, and we're definitely going to bring in a lot of cognitive transition from humans to silicon, and bring in a whole lot of AI applications, whether it's decisioning, computer vision, natural language processing, multimodality, and anomaly detection, and so on and so forth. Right. So we have a full pipeline of use cases that we want to bring in the manufacturing world.
I think just the follow-up question was, we spoke about research AI versus applied AI, and like at Custiv, do you see yourself probably using? I'm guessing that you might have answered this question, but do you see yourself using more of applied AI?
Yeah, we're going to apply AI simply because with all the open source work in the and just the community, in the initial days, scikit-learn, NumPy, and all of these basic manipulations in the basic library, which kind of had fairly robust, high performance software, lower language software written like in C language and so on.
Yeah.
So that was being available. The community always supported that, and now even the foundation models are becoming open source and highly performant. So we see that we will be net consumers of the tech rather than net builders of new tech.
Yeah.
I think that is something which is very positive just by all the market motions which have happened, and also all the big cloud vendors have fully embraced it, and also all the AI infrastructure companies, lot of startups in AI infrastructure are coming, for example, for MLOps, observability, etc., which will allow us to benefit from bringing AI solutions at a fast clip and cost effectively. I think the biggest hurdle is really data and understanding the domain, and I think from our vantage point, our strength lies in getting the data, understanding the domain, and using open source AI and public cloud to kind of introduce AI in the manufacturing.
And I think, and this is something I'm curious about you personally. So you're also an educator, and so if you had more time, would you spend like part of your time doing? I mean, let's just say a week is made of 14 days instead of 7 days. So would you spend like half of that time working for Custiv using applied AI and the other half doing research AI? I'm sure someone would be curious about that.
No, so I think I think I am at that stage more of applied AI simply because first of all, research is a different branch. I should have branched off probably 15 years back, just to say. And I think what we're trying to, I think it's ultimately about how you add net positive outcomes, let's say in the larger context of humanity. But I think our contribution is in terms of how we are solving some problems. I think I'm still an engineer at heart rather than a researcher at heart, so to say. And I would see as an engineer, the job is to how to use mature or semi-mature technologies and helping new generation of technologists to come and guide them, coach them, and bring these technologies to life for them. I think that's the kind of at least my sweet spot per se. Yeah, that's where we. Yeah. And by the way, we have 14 days, but we must not.
That's interesting.
I actually want to sort of double click on one aspect of what you were talking about, which is, how sort of AI sort of makes its way into different aspects of a business as well, right? And I know that you're also a big advocate for, in terms of the applications that AI has for business, not just for an end user, but also for the business
Absolutely.
itself, right? So I think very briefly, I know that this is a very big topic if we dig into it. So very briefly, if you were to sort of have any advice for managers in different companies, which might not be very AI oriented, but might be in the tech or tech adjacent fields, what do you think they should be keeping in mind what should they be keeping in mind when they're sort of planning ahead? Because there is AI and there are applications for their work. So how do you?
Yeah, sure. So I think that's a great question, and I would say one piece of advice would be that technology is to serve business, not the other way around. Okay, don't try to be a guy with the hammer looking for nails everywhere. Just so that's simple thing, right? Number one. Number two is that I would say, for all it takes, Google has a lot of my respect for what they have done to progress AI in a very, very positive fashion for humankind. I know it's a little controversial, but they actually came up with some, I think at that point they had some 43 rules or something, principles for applying AI. I would recommend everybody to go through those 43 principles, right? So their first principle, one of the principles which sticks, I don't know what is that rule number, but rule number says that if the problem can be solved by software, don't try to solve it with AI.
Yeah.
So for example, and I'm digressing a bit, I'll come back later. But it's like 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 can be solved by a mathematical operator using 2 plus 2 is 4. Other way to say is that you take 1,000 samples, where 2 plus 2 is 3.9, 4.1, 4.5, and you'll run a regression, standard machine learning algorithm to come up still with 2.2 is 4 with a probability of 99.7%. So obviously you only choose, right? So that is what I meant with if you can solve it with software, solve it with software, right? Keep things simple. Don't make life complex. That is one. Now coming back to what advice I would see besides these two broad advices. So don't be an AI fanboy. Okay? Fanboy or fangirl. Be a business guy. Find a problem. See it can be solved. So that is one, right? Second thing is always focus on the business case. And this is your responsibility as a manager, as a business manager, to define that business case. If you are not doing that is one, right? And second thing is hire super competent team to do that. Don't look for mediocre people. It is one thing. And the last thing would be work on your competitive advantage. It is two. One is your business case, and second is the data. That's it.
Those are great takeaways. Yeah.